What's going on, everybody? Bo here from Conde Systems. Today we've got a great webinar coming up with you, and it's a pretty important one if you are in the world of digital decoration. And I guess I'm going to start this off by first saying that my name is Bo. I work for Conde Systems, and we are a world leader in sublimation in digital decoration supplies. This down here is my email address. You can email me, bo@conde.com. If you have any questions about anything, you want to know products, you want to know what's going on, you want to know what's new in the world, you just want to talk, just go ahead, email me, bo@conde.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can also reach us directly at sales@conde.com, or you can give us a call at 1-800-826-6332. Again, my name is Bo. This is Conde Systems, and today we are going to be talking about one of the most important aspects of digital decoration. And guess what? It has nothing to do with being digital, really. I guess there's some digital features that may be talked about today, but there's an age-old question in the world, and that is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I don't know. We could talk about that for a while. And I always think about, in the world of digital decoration, what comes first? The heat press, getting a good heat press, or getting a good printer? Because let's be honest, we all can't afford the good heat press and the good printer all at the same time. So as you're scaling your business, as you're moving up and doing things, what's better to get, a good heat press or a good printer? Now, we had a great live with Vincent from DTF Station, and he talked about, how you can get the DTF printer or you can just get DTF transfers. So if you're in the world of just getting transfers, it's easy. Get good transfers from somebody you trust, and then just invest in a reliable heat press. Now, today we're going to be talking to Mike from Hotronix. I'm going to bring him on and introduce Mike. Yeah, that button there. What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Very good, Bo. Appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah. You're going to talk to us about Hotronix heat presses. That's your specialty, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Hotronix has a lot to offer. Now, I did want to mention something before we get into this for everybody out there. We do have specials on some Hotronix presses right now. They are call-in or email specials. So go ahead and email sales@conde.com, or give us a call, 1-800-826-6332. Now, these are just a limited number of opportunities here. So if you're interested, give us a call as soon as you can. And then there's also a sale going on with Hotronix right now, right? Absolutely. Should I let you? I'm going to put the graphic up and let you talk about it, or?
Yeah, sure. However you want to do it.
Here it is. It's work smarter, not harder. That's what we're going to do today, right?
Yes, absolutely. And what we're going to be covering is learning the value of Hotronix heat presses and what commercial grade quality can provide to your business. And the big special that Hotronix is putting out for the next till September 30th, however many days that is, or weeks. So, and through September 30th, this special is ongoing through Conde. And it is for the 16x20 Hotronix Auto Clam heat press, which we're going to see here in a little bit. And any purchase of that comes with our Hotronix heat press caddy. And what that caddy is, it's a stand for your heat press. And again, when we dive into the meat and potatoes of the presentation today, you're going to see all the benefits of that and just what a tremendous value that is to that heat press purchase.
And Mike, I'm pulling up the link right now. I thought I had it pulled up, but I left the page to look at Platens.
Yeah, no worries.
Lots of great things on Conde.com for Hotronix. You can get lost in there looking at it. I'm putting in a link to the product right now, the Auto Clam. It's product number STX20.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
All right, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you you talk. I'll be here answering questions and fielding questions. So if you have questions, please send them our way.
Perfect. Yeah. Both. If there's any questions you need me to answer, just let me know and I'll be happy to chime in. So thanks everyone for joining us today. And again, Bo, for having me on here today. And so what we're going to be covering in the session today is just walking you through what makes Hotronix heat presses different from, the standard models that, everyone can see out there, from smart features like digital time, temperature, pressure readouts, to the build quality that ensures consistent results that you'll see how commercial equipment supports better production, reliability, and most importantly, what we're all in business for is growth, and that's what really Hotronix provides for everybody. But before we dive into taking a look at some of the top models that Hotronix manufactures, let's first take a look at the heat printing industry as a whole. And in my opinion, and just being at some trade shows, talking to many distributors out there, much like Conde and customers direct, heat printing is alive and well and continuing to thrive. And many reasons for that. Just because the plethora, the advancements in heat transfer technologies that have come over the years. They're just tremendous right now. So many different options and so many different capabilities that all these different transfer types that you can apply with simply a heat press, is just continuing to grow and continue to improve in quality. Heat printing, it's really, comes into play for many different types of folks. A lot of folks getting into the industry, maybe they're a home-based business working out of their home, their garage, or, a side room, whatever that might be, to the side hustle. Hey, yeah, I just want to have some extra income to my current job, so to, mid to, the mom and pop shops out there, that on Main Street, perfectly fits for heat printing, but also even the large contract decorators out there who are doing screen printing, embroidery, sublimation, you name it, they're doing it. Heat printing is becoming huge in their decorating capabilities and the services that they're providing to customers. So I've been here in the industry, with Groupstall and Hotronix for 21 years, and my early years, going to trade shows and talking to customers, and, a screen printer would call you, or you'd cold call a screen printer or talk to them at a trade show. You start talking to them about transfers, they kind of turned up their nose. Oh, those aren't any good. They're just going to fall off. They're not going to last, but heat transfer technology has grown so much and improved so much over these last 21 years that, over the last, I'd say 3 to 5 years, screen printers have really finally started to embrace heat printing, with all these transfer advancements. So that's just super great for the heat printing world. So what we're going to be talking about today is Hotronix, provides, heat presses from every level of decorator that you could imagine. Like I said earlier, from the home-based business to the side hustle, to the mom and pop shops, to those high volume commercial decorators out there. Heat printing fits, and we have a model that's going to suit everyone's needs out there, whatever they might be. And like Bo said, what's my decision? Am I going to get a heat press, invest in that, and a printer? If it were me, especially to the startup or the side hustle or even the smaller business out there, I think the heat press is the most important part of that business, over that printer, because like Bo said, there's transfer printers out there, from screen printed transfers everywhere, DTF transfers, vinyl cut transfers. They're still being used, a variety of them. And, earlier on, you might have had a handful of these types of businesses or website that did custom transfers. Now you do a quick Google search in 2025, you're going to find 25 pages of custom transfers. So like Bo said, whatever transfer type that you're going to need to apply, just find yourself a reliable transfer service, and one that's quality and works for you, and then invest in that heat press. And what's great about heat printing is that it's a simple piece of equipment to learn. There's not much learning curve to it. You could probably be pretty much trained on a heat press in about 30 minutes. Maybe some of the more advanced ones, it takes you a little bit longer to know all the nuances and features that it has, but at the end of the day, it is pretty simple. And it's easily scalable, right? So adding a heat press, utilizing transfers to help grow your business, and not having to worry about, oh, I'm not using this piece of equipment, every day, so my print heads are going to clog, or all the maintenance that goes into it. Not to mention the learning curve, from learning artwork to learning the printer operations to learning the maintenance of it, right? That's a lot to take on for a small business. So with heat printing, super simple to get into it, very affordable price ranges, and like I said, not a big learning curve, but easily scalable, growing your business just simply by utilizing a heat press. And as and like I was in direct sales years ago, working with home-based businesses, so many of them, just pursued at it and continued to grow. Hey, yeah, now it is time for me to add this printing equipment, or the screen printer, the embroidery machine, and just simply taking that small bite initially with just that simple heat press, allowed them to easily scale their business. So that's enough for me talking about the business there. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation today. And so Like I said, Hotronix manufactures a variety of different heat presses. And what we're going to be covering today is our most popular models. But before we get into these, I want to talk about some. Unfortunately, I thought we had some in our demo room, but a little miscommunication between me and some folks. But we do have some entry level to kind of intermediate units that I don't have on display here, but are excellent units backed by manufactured and backed by Hotronix. So, Bo, we have our first one, which is our basic clam press. And now these models here are ideal for that entry level business, the home based business. It's not a high investment, and two, it's kind of safe because talking to a lot of folks in the past, I don't want to spend too much on a piece of equipment because what if it doesn't work out for me, right? So there's always those questions in people's heads. So the basic clam press that we do have, it is very moderately priced, available in 3 different sizes: 11 by 15, 15 by 15, and 16 by 20. And those price ranges anywhere from $500 to $800, depending on that size. And those are clamshell style models, but have great features that are super important when it comes to, application of all the different transfers. So this press does have digital time and temperature readouts. So super easy to program the temperature that you need, as well as the time. And one of the nice features too is it has the over the center pressure adjustment, which ensures even pressure across the heat press platen from top to bottom, left to right, right? So that over the center is key for that perfect pressure. Some clamshell models out there that you might have seen, they have their pressure adjustment in the back. And, so what that's doing is it's exerting a little more pressure in the back, causing a pinching effect. So those are some of the things that you want to look out for, because when you're looking, especially new businesses, they're going to Google heat presses. They're going to find, plethora of heat presses ranging anywhere from, as little as $250 to $500 and things, and that's super attractive to that. Hey, $250, I'm going to get myself a heat press, but oftentimes those types that you find on Amazon or eBay and things like that, those presses, while that price is really attractive, you have to really think about, like compare it to if you're buying a car. Hey, I'm going to buy this car for $5,000 off a used car lot, right? Versus I'm going to spend $20,000 minimum on a Kia or something like that, right? Those things are priced that way for a reason. So those import presses and the inexpensive presses that you're seeing on eBay and like I said, Amazon, sure, that price is attractive, but let's think about, the build quality of those. There's a lot of weld marks, so easily, and they're not, the best steel used, so they're just not properly built, so it's going to lead to potential problems. And then, a lot of times with these import presses that you're buying off of there, what happens if the heat press does break? Because let's face it, it's equipment, there's always a potential for it to break, no matter what type of equipment it is, and one of the downfalls of the import presses, hey, my heating element went out or my digital timer went out, you're left kind of searching Google because there's no service after the sale for those types of heat presses. So, when considering,
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
I like to say one, on those basic red presses, if you give us a call or email us, 1-800-826-6332, or email us at sales@conde.com, we can do a better price than what Mike said earlier on those. I'm sure we can. So give us a call. We can get you a great press at a great starting price there. And another thing, you were talking about the import presses and all those things. Mm-hmm. Until you invest in something like a Hotronix press, you really are just, your heat press is a consumable. I could be wrong on this, but the platin's lifetime, right?
On the Hotronix, yeah, the heating element is for life, yeah.
And then parts and labor, and I was looking at these yesterday, and I don't remember them.
The red press, I believe it's 90-day warranty.
Yeah, but for the other Hotronix presses, they have really good warranties.
Yeah, and I'll touch on those too when we dive into the
like this next one here. It's in the Max series.
Yep, that's the next one. So yeah, that's the things to consider. Like I said, the import presses, those prices are super attractive. At $250, hey, that's super simple for me to afford right now. But again, like Bo said, at the end of the day, that's going to end up being a consumable piece of equipment for you, that's not something that you want to do. And like I said, I was in direct sales years ago when the imports first started coming across. Folks were, hey, I just bought this one. You know what? I needed to get another one in 3 months because I couldn't get anybody home for part. So they ended up buying sometimes 2 or 3 presses before they realized, if I would have just made this investment right up front, I would have had quality. I wouldn't have had these worries, and I wouldn't have had have any downtime. And that's not a lot of times folks don't even think about that. When your heat press breaks, how are you going to decorate now? So you have to factor in that downtime of your business. So with Hotronix quality, like I said, the red press, we do manufacture that overseas, but it is backed by Hotronix. So you're going to get that quality. And now the next step up, we have our Max line. And this is one of my favorite heat presses that we have in our lineup. It often goes overlooked because some of the other ones that we have here, but the Max is a super solid heat press, and I even think it's great for that, new business just getting into it again, because you're looking for that quality. So the Stahls Max definitely provides that. Again, it has digital time and digital time and temperature controls. Again, the over the center pressure adjustment. And one of the nice features about the remaining heat presses that we're going to be talking about today is that lower platen that you see on the Stahls Max. Those can be interchanged to different sizes, which is going to make your decorating life a lot easier, because these different size platens are going to allow you to decorate a variety of different things outside of just your simple wearables, your t-shirts and hoodies. Nearly any heat press is going to be able to do those very quickly and very easily, but getting into, odd shaped items or youth garments or baby garments or backpacks and legs and sleeves, so all the Hotronix heat presses that we're going to be talking about moving forward, the Max and up, all have the ability to interchange platens to help you decorate a variety of different items. And we're going to take a look at some of those here today. And so the Max, it is available in 3 different sizes as well, from 11 by 15, 15 by 15, and 16 by 20, and a price ranging starting at $850 up to $1,450. So very economically priced. Sure, they're not, in the $200 to $500 price range, but again, you're getting the quality for that price, and a reputable product with lifetime warranty on the heating element, and the Max has a 1-year warranty on everything else. So just a great startup press. So now, we just talked about a couple of the heat presses there having different size options for you. And so when it comes to heat presses, again, my direct sales career, I always recommended folks, hey, if your budget allows, just get that 16 by 20 heat press, right? Because, thinking, okay, this 11 by 15, I'm going to save myself a few $100s initially here, but then again, you're kind of pigeonholing yourself into, only being able to decorate that platen size. So you can't get anything bigger than 11 by 15. Sure, most transfers on the front of the shirt, there may be 10 by 10, but sometimes in the oversized, you're getting 12 by 12, 14 by 14, something like that. So there, you just cut yourself off from decorating those types of things, so if the budget allows, and even if maybe I have to save for another couple more months, it's probably best to wait until you could get that 16 by 20, because the 16 by 20 platen is going to accommodate, really any type of application that you're going to have to do on a hoodie, a t-shirt, things like that. And like I said earlier, all of our heat presses, with the exception of the red press, have the ability to change these platens. So, hey, yeah, I'm decorating a youth garment. I could swap this 16 by 20 out to an 11 by 15, to make it easier. And again, we'll highlight some of the features of the platens as well. So the Max, again, great intermediate heat press, or even that startup business, because I do feel that it's economically priced for the quality and the reliability that you're going to be getting with the Stahls Max line. All right. So, Bo, do we have any questions to address, or are we good there?
We are good to go. I was going to ask, does the Max line have threadability?
It does. And we're going to highlight threadability. Well, it doesn't have it out of the box, but when we get in, because the next one we're going to be talking about is one of our best-selling units. It is the Hotronix Auto Clam, which is, again, what we have the special on. And what you see here is it's on a stand. And that's our Hotronix caddy stand. And with this promo, any purchase of this 16 by 20 Hotronix Auto Clam will come with the free caddy. And the caddy is one of the most important pieces and accessories or additional items that you could buy when purchasing a clamshell style heat press. And the Max is compatible with the caddy as well. And why did we create this caddy, right? So we created it for more versatility. And like Bo said, threadability. I think we coined the term threadability when it comes to heat printing. And so what that is let me grab a t-shirt. And so threadability, picture it as like, putting a pillow into a pillowcase, or when you're ironing a pair of pants on an ironing board, you're going to dress those legs on there, right? And that's the idea behind the heat press caddy. And now, most times, folks, when they're going to be decorating a t-shirt, they're just going to drop it on the platen here, and both sides there, and they're going to decorate. Now, sure, that's really no problem and drawback to that, but it's a much better and more successful heat transfer application when you're only applying to one layer, because a lot of times, we always stress, hey, preheat your garment, to get any moisture, get any wrinkles out of there. Sometimes folks forget that step. Maybe the front of it looks nice and smooth, but maybe there's some wrinkles on the back of that shirt laying on the platen. And then what that's going to do is sometimes create uneven pressure. When you have uneven pressure, when you're applying transfers, it could lead to, one corner not adhering, or just not getting enough pressure to drive that adhesive into the fabric. And so that's eventually going to lead to either peeling, or it's going to get thrown in the wash, and it's going to start to crack off. So what the heat press caddy does for a clamshell model is makes it threadable. And what I mean by threadable, so we're going to open up our shirt and we're going to just dress it over this platen, just like this. And now we had to develop the caddy for this because the way the clamshell is designed, like if you don't have the caddy, there's like this much space when you're setting it on the table. So having that base underneath prevents that threadability. And so so it kind of limits your decorating options. So with threadability, it's making it easier to decorate t-shirts, one layer of fabric. So once you do that heat press or that pre-press, it's going to get that moisture and wrinkle. You have a flat, even pressing surface there, for a successful transfer. And what threadability also comes into play is, let's say you're decorating a baseball jersey, right? And you need to do the name and a number on the back. And most of the time on the baseball jerseys, they're buttoned down the front. So without that threadability, you're going to have to use pillows and things for those buttons to be absorbed, so you're getting an even pressure. So what's nice about that threadability, if I have to decorate that back, it doesn't matter. Those buttons are underneath here, and I have my full back to apply my names and numbers there. And one of my favorite features about the caddy as well is, let's say we are doing front and back applications. So let's just do a quick application here. So I just have a simple DTF transfer here that I'm going to be applying. And so I have my garment threaded. And so I'm just doing a quick pre-press. And what that's doing is getting moisture and wrinkles trapped inside that garment out of it. And now when you do a pre-press, and if you do that, and if you still see sometimes steam coming out of there, give that one another pre-press to get that moisture out of there that could potentially affect that successful application. So here I'm going to apply this on the left chest. So I'm sometimes terrible at placement. So if I hold this up and it's crooked, don't hold it against me. So, but in the middle of the seam here, and I'm just going to drop that down, right about there. And so I'm going to apply that. And so what I'm going to do, and in this particular one, transfer, it's 325 for about 10 to 12 seconds at a medium pressure. And that's what's great about Hotronix. The Auto Clam has digital time, temperature, as well as a pressure readout. So what's nice about having that pressure readout is if you have multiple users utilizing this heat press, it's going to maintain a consistent pressure across the board, because I'm sure many of you are out there doing a lot of heat printing. Hey, this transfer requires a light pressure. This one's a medium. This one's a heavy, right? So it's great about the pressure readout here on the Hotronix Auto Clam is, like I said, it's consistent. So if you're heat pressing on, for a couple of hours and, your employee comes in to take over, to do some more pressing, right? So pressure is all relative, so maybe a big muscular person, their light pressure is the next guy's heavy pressure, right? So having that value there, and the value is gauged here on the heat press from 1 to 9. And so you think of it in terms of 1 through 3 is a light pressure, 4 through 6 is a medium pressure, 7 and above is a heavy pressure, right? And so once you set that pressure, and you're always, when you're testing pressure on a heat press, you always want to test it with the item that you're pressing in there, right? Because that's going to fluctuate based off of the thickness of the garment. So, if we went from a hoodie or from this t-shirt to a hoodie, You know, this was set at a 5, which is a medium pressure for this DTF transfer. If we went and we switched a hoodie out without adjusting that pressure, that thickness of the garment is going to probably jump that pressure up to maybe a 7 or an 8. You know, so you always want to do your pressure adjustments with the garment in there. And it's super simple to adjust the pressure on the Hotronix Auto Clam. Just simply over the center, there's a knob. You turn it lefty loosey, righty tighty. In this case, righty heavier, right? You know, so it's super easy to do, and it's push button operations when it comes to the time and temperature. Okay, but I went off on a little tangent there on the features, you know, but what I like best about the caddy. So I have my left chest design here. You know what? I'm going to put a full size transfer on the back. So what I could do is I could just simply, without even having to take my t-shirt off, you know, I could spin it around. My back's there. I got it nice and straight. So now I'm going to do a quick pre-press. And now I have, you know, transfer that I'm going to drop on the back of here, you know, just another DTF transfer. So now I can pop that on there, lock that down, and now I quickly and easily, you know, did a left chest as well as a full front without ever even having to remove that t-shirt off. And so that's, you know, super huge when it comes to production speeds, you know, because you think about it, you might not think, you know, hey, I'm going to pull this t-shirt off, I'm going to, you know, put it back on. You know, that could be, you know, 10 to 12 seconds for somebody. Maybe it's 8, you know, 5 to 8, you know, that's going to depend. But you think about that over time, those 10 to 15 seconds, those are going to add up in your production time, right? You know, so reducing that production time allows you to decorate more items quicker and easier and getting them out the door to your customers, right? So the Hotronix Auto Clam, a great option. And so here we have, it's a super easy application on the left chest, and we have our full front. And we decorated that without even taking that off the garment. And
hey,
so,
Mike,
yes.
you might have addressed this, but why is it called the Auto Clam?
The Auto Clam, you know what? Good catch there, Bo.
And can you turn that off if you wanted to?
The auto release feature is always within the heat press, so you can't disable that. So why it's called the Auto Clam, Bo, and the folks out there, is because once you lock this heat press down, this one is set for 12 seconds. So once that timer reaches 0, this heat press is going to open automatically. You know, so this is great, you know, for the one person shop, or, you know, a couple of employees here at the business. You know, if you're decorating, hey, I just applied that for 12 seconds. Hey, somebody just called, or, you know, whatever, you have to step away from the press, or for whatever reason that is, you know, that auto release feature is going to give you that peace of mind. So if you had to step away, hey, I got to interact with a customer, I got to take a phone call, or whatever that might be, you know, when this timer reaches 0, that heat press is going to open automatically, ensuring, you know, that you're not going to over apply that transfer, potentially, you know, liquefying the adhesive where it doesn't adhere properly to, you know, burning the transfer, burning the shirt, whatever. You know, you have that peace of mind that will open automatically. All right, and so the Auto Clam, much like the other heat presses we talked about, is available in 3 different sizes: 11 by 15, 16 by 16, and 16 by 20. And my rule is, hey, if you could get the 16 by 20, or if I gotta save up for another couple more months, you know, I'm going to wait and get that 16 by 20, so you're not limiting yourself right out of the gate. You know, because a lot of times, you know, folks, yeah, the 11 by 15 is going to suit me just well because I know I'm only going to be doing X, Y, and Z, right? So maybe that does accommodate what your initial plans are, you know, but eventually as a decorator, you're going to diversify. You know, folks are going to begin, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And then then when you realize, oh man, my heat press is too small, I got to get something bigger so I could service these new customers and new requests that are coming in from your other customers. So 16 by 20 is the best way to go. And then, you know, why a lot of folks like the clamshell style design, and it's called a clamshell because it opens and closes just like a clam does. But why this is attractive to a lot of smaller shops, or like I said, the home base, because it doesn't take up a lot of space, right? You know, so it opens up, you know, you can stick this in a corner. So if you're limited on space, the clamshell is very accommodating for that. Or maybe you don't even have the room to have the caddy, you just have a little space for a table. You know, this sits easily on a table. You just want to have a table that could support the weight. And, you know, the unboxed weight of this is about 100 pounds, you know, so as long as you have a table that's accommodating to that weight, you know, it's going to sit on a table very nicely. And now what's one thing nice about the caddy? So the caddy that's included in this promotion is here. It's kind of on a stand. You can't see the wheels, but there are wheels on this. So I could easily move this around my shop if I need to, whatever I want to do. But the caddy is also manufactured in a counter caddy, which sits on a table. So if you are a shop, I don't have room, to accommodate the base of the caddy, but the counter caddy, it's designed for the same exact features, for the threadability, all that good stuff. But if you only have a table to put your heat press on, you could still have a threadable clamshell with the counter caddy that it can sit on a counter. All right. Any questions, Bo, to address?
No questions yet.
Okay, perfect.
Is the counter caddy kind of like the Fusion right now?
The counter caddy, yeah, it's kind of like the Fusion, which is what we're going to look at now. So, and if you, like I said, if you want to include a link to the Hotronix counter caddy on there, I'd say go ahead and do that. But if you get this, the STX20, the Hotronix Auto Clam 16x20, you're going to get that floor caddy at no additional cost. It's a tremendous $550 value that's going to really elevate your business and allow you more versatility and better utilization of the platens, which we'll cover here at the end, with that threadability.
I'm going to throw this graphic up here for a second so people can read that, they want to work harder, not smarter. And exactly. Yes, you do get a free heat press caddy right now with just the purchase of a 16x20 Auto Clam press, which is the STX20. And that heat press caddy is automatically applied to anybody that purchases a 16x20 Auto Clam right now. So if you purchase it, you get it, whether you want it or not.
Yep, and that promo will run through September 30th. So what is it, September, and then October 1st? Unfortunately, that promo is no longer going to apply. All right, so moving on to this Hotronix Fusion. This is probably our #1 selling unit across the board and across our distributor network, and for a variety of different reasons. First, digital, all Hotronix heat presses are digital time and temperature controls. The Fusion is as well. And the Fusion, much like the Auto Clam, also has a live pressure readout. But one of the great things about the Hotronix Fusion is the control screen. It's fully digital and it's touchscreen. So it will come with a little stylus pen, or you could just simply, use your fingers. Unfortunately, I don't have the power requirements to have both heat presses running right now, but the touchscreen here, it's fully digital. So super simple to adjust your time, your temperature, as well as your pressure. And, the pressure is tested much like the Auto Clam. We have the over the center pressure adjustment here over the platen. So again, load your garment or whatever item that you're pressing into that heat press, lock it down, and then you'll be able to make that pressure adjustment, to be set at a 3 or set at a 5 or 7, whatever you need to be, just simply by turning the knob to the left or the right to adjust that with the garment in there. So super easy to do that. But one of the nice features about the Hotronix the Fusion control board is you have the ability to enter presets, right? So let's just say you're a business who applies screen printed transfers, sublimation transfers, HTV, DTF, you name it. You apply a variety of different transfers out there. And with the Auto Clam, you're going to have to make those changes manually, to adjust that temperature, adjust that time. What's nice about the Fusion and the presets, you could preload, hey, screen print transfer, all the different transfers and brands that you're using, you could pre-program them into the Hotronix Fusion. So hey, yeah, I'm doing my screen print transfer right now. I've got to switch to DTF. You just simply touch the control board to go into your presets, and you can select whatever you name those transfers. So, hey, screen print 1, DTF 2, whatever you name those, you have the ability to call the transfers whatever you want. So within those presets, just simply select it. It's going to then automatically adjust that time and temperature to that particular transfer type that you selected within the preset. So, super, super nice, so you don't have to, have text sheets laying around or, my memory is terrible having to remember how many different times and temperatures that you need to cycle through, so super easy and great if you have, again, multiple users. Hey, I don't know what this time is. You have to call somebody or, look it up on the internet, just simply plug it in here. So great for multi-users, and again, just to save from clutter, because you have those instruction sheets laying all over the place, so it just makes it super easy for you. And one of the nice things about
Does that, Mike, does that have stalls HTV already registered in there? Do you already have presets for some stalls products too?
yeah, there are some presets preloaded. There are some of the stalls HTV products preloaded into there. Yeah, some HTV, and I think some of the printable HTV are preloaded in there. You know, if you want to delete all those, you can. If you're not using any stalls products, you could delete those. You know, rename and enter whatever you want, because there's an unlimited number of presets. You know, so you don't only have 8. You could have 1,000 different presets in there if you need to. All right.
Well,
And
Tom
so,
bought a Fusion IQ last year and he loves it. It's expensive, but it's the best equipment purchase he's ever made. And,
yeah,
you know,
we
that's
appreciate that
the kind of
feedback.
comments you hear when someone invests in a commercial heat press.
Yes, absolutely. And, he hit it right on the head. Yes, it is expensive, but it's a lot of peace of mind that goes into that purchase, not just, but peace of mind with the quality, the reliability, and the consistency that you're going to get with that. And the great news is, should there ever a problem arise, and like I said, it's equipment, anything could happen. So we are fully support all of our heat presses out there, all of our service calls. They're handled here where I am in Carmichael's, Pennsylvania, which is where we manufacture all of our heat presses. So we don't use third party. We don't outsource any of our tech support calls. If you're talking to a technician on the phone with Hotronix, they're homegrown. They've likely been assembling heat presses before they took that tech call, right? So they live, breathe these heat presses. So you're going to be able to rely, if problems do arise with these heat presses, you're going to have premium support to get these heat presses back up and running quickly. All right, so where were we here? So we were on the Fusion IQ touchscreen, and one of the often overlooked features of the IQ technology that we have in our Fusion line of heat presses, and it's our production management tools that are within there. And now this is mainly going to be more utilized for a mid to higher volume business where they have maybe multiple heat press operators. They're operating, a couple of shifts or something like that. So as a production manager, what's great about the IQ Cloud technology is there's production management tools within there. So if I'm a production manager and I have 3 folks, applying my transfers throughout the day, you could program them as users into this heat press. And what's going to happen is they can log in as a user, and then the Fusion IQ will be able to track their production efficiencies, right? So they can say, hey, yeah, this heat press operator number 1, they pumped out 50 transfers or 50 heat presses in an hour, or however many that might be, because that's a pretty fast one. If you could do 50 in an hour, that's pretty good. But yeah, it could track employees' production times. It could even track errors. So let's just say, you had a customer, you just delivered 50 shirts. They called you back. Hey, all these transfers are coming off of my t-shirts. What's going on here? So as a production manager, I could even log into the IQ Cloud from my laptop, and it could say, okay, we pressed this on so-and-so date and user number 1 did it. And it will even tell you, hey, they used the wrong temperature, or they didn't apply it enough time. So you could kind of dial into, hey, yeah, well, that was our fault. We didn't apply it with the correct temperature, with the correct time. So a lot of useful tools in there for production management, to make sure that, when errors do arise, you could look into here, hey, did we misapply them? Maybe it was a bad transfer, or it's something the customer had did to cause those transfers to fail, right? So a lot of great tools in there for production as well. But a lot of times those are great. But what really attracts folks and what makes the Hotronix Fusion one of the most versatile heat presses you're going to see out there on the market is the operation and the complete threadability without having to have an additional stand. So it's a little tough to see here, but it is 100% cantilevered open design down here, so makes threadability super easy and a little better than with the clamshell, just because there's more space underneath. And I have a backpack here that would be really tough to decorate in any kind of heat press except the Fusion, and you're just going to see the versatility that this one has. And that's why it's the most favorite for mine, because of that versatility, because, t-shirts and sweatshirts, everybody wants those, but it's an ever-changing world and everybody wants something. And the backpacks, the reusable grocery bags, all those different things, the Fusion, it makes it easy to decorate those odd shaped things for a variety of different reasons, which we're going to look into now. And so operation of this mode, it could operate in a couple of different ways. So as we just saw, you could either utilize the pull out, or you could utilize this as a swing away. So there's a little locking mechanism here. So if you're not going to use the swing, you could lock it, or if you prefer it to swing away, you could just simply swing it away there. And why folks like a swing away or a pull out, because let's look at one of the disadvantages of this clamshell is when you're working, you're always working under that heat, right? So it gets hot, and you have potential to burn your fingers, or you get in here too deep, you might burn your forehead there. So that's a lot of reasons why some folks, I don't like that clamshell because I might get burned, right? And it's true. I mean, I've been doing it forever, and I've caught my finger on there a few times. So you're always working under that heat, and if you're doing pre-cuts or you're applying individual letters, you're always going to be working under that heat unless you put it on a table, lay it out, and use tape. So little production inefficiencies there when it comes to it. But with a swing away or this pull out, I have a heat-free workspace. I have anywhere to move around. So if I am doing those individual letters or numbers or things like that, I could easily place them without having to be under that heat all the time. So that's a big reason why folks prefer a swing away or a draw style press, just for, extra safety for their employees to not have the potential to burn themselves, right? So you could either do it a number of ways. I mean, I know I've been at shows where I swung it away a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to pull out a little bit, so I kind of use it as kind of a hybrid mode. But whichever way you want to utilize it, you can. But again, just like that, this threadability here. And so I'm just going to, I don't have this heat press on, so I'm not going to apply anything. But again, same thing applies. You have 100% threadability under here to open up our shirt, place it on there. And then there you have that one layer. And again, like we did with the clam, if I need to spin this around to decorate the back, don't even have to take it off of my platen. And there we can decorate the back. So 100% threadability there, without having to have any additional pieces of equipment. Okay. Any questions on the Fusion here, Bo?
No questions yet. If anyone has any questions for Mike here on the Fusion, just let me know and I'll let them know.
All right, perfect. So, these two models right here, so our Auto Clam and our Fusion, by far the best-selling heat presses that Hotronix manufactures, through our distributor network. Now, a couple other heat presses, again, I don't have on display, but we had an early chatter on when we first started the live session. We had somebody waiting there, and they said, "Hey, I have a Hotronix Fusion. Can't wait to get the dual air Fusion." So we also make, high volume heat press machines. Now, again, these are geared more towards the, the higher volume kind of contract decorator type. So we have air operated Fusions as well. So the Fusion family, this is, the mainstay here. We have our manual Fusion, Hotronix Fusion. But we also have air Fusion models. So same thing we covered here on the control board. It's all the same. Threadability, swing away. Now, the air style models, they don't have a pull out. It's only going to be swing away, right? But the air models, those are super nice for folks because it's full automation, right? If you're doing a lot of pressing, you might not think about it, with opening and closing and swinging away, or versus here, this one you're only closing, but still over time, hey, my shoulder is going to get sore if I'm doing this all day. So the air operated presses are great because they're super easy, push button operation. So once you push those buttons, it's going to close. Timer reaches 0. It's going to open automatically and even swing away automatically. Now, with the air models, it comes with a foot pedal as well. So if you don't want the swing to happen automatically, just once the application's done, you click the foot pedal, it'll swing it away. You click the foot pedal, it'll bring it back, right? And so we have the air model of the Fusion, and then we have our super high production models, which are our dual air Fusion. We have two options available for dual station heat presses. We have the standard dual air Fusion, and then we have the dual air Fusion with the ProPlace IQ. And what the ProPlace IQ is it is a projection system that will mount to the back of the dual air Fusion. And then what it's going to be able to do through the IQ cloud that all Fusions has, so decorators will be able to upload their artwork to the cloud. And so this is especially useful for any kind of heat transfer that comes with a clear carrier. So DTF, I'm seeing a lot of screen print transfers migrate over to clear carriers, but what the projection system will do is one of the most challenging things for a decorator. Like I said earlier, hey, I'm not the best when it comes to placement or making sure things are straight. That's always one a big challenge when heat pressing. How do I know when it's straight? I got a ruler, I got lasers that stand on the side and things like that I have to adjust. So that ProPlace IQ projection system, it has projectors mounted over each of those platens. So when that artwork is uploaded to the cloud, a user could go in and select, hey, I'm using logo number 1 for my transfer run that I'm doing. Once you select that on the heat press, that projection system will display a lit image right over top of the platen, exactly where that transfer is going to go. So you just line that transfer up with the projected image on the platen, so you're getting perfect placement every time from user to user, because that projection is going to shine right where you position it once you have. Now, sure, yes, you have to have the garment loaded on there straight, but that positioning of that transfer, all you simply do is line it up to the projected image. That image is 100% straight and accurate on your garments there. So again, super. So we do have models for every kind of user out there. Like I said, from the home-based business to the high production commercial decorator running shift after shift, heat pressing all day long. So we have a heat press for you that you could have the confidence in, and to ensure that you're putting out quality products to your customers with minimal failure rate with the quality within Hotronix. And what's nice about them too, all Hotronix heat presses are laser cut steel, so there aren't any welds. A lot of the import presses, so many different things are welded together, and that's typically where a handle breaks or something like that. So everything that you're getting with Hotronix is all laser cut steel, no welds, and all that stuff. So the build's quality, the press is quality, so at the end of the day, the products that you're putting out are quality. And so one last thing I'd like to cover when it comes, so we kind of covered the line of heat presses, but one thing I always like to talk about is the ability, like I said, to switch out these platens. And so the ability to change these platens just makes your life as a decorator much easier. So these have an easy lock system underneath the platen here on both models. It's just a simple latch. We're going to pull that out, and we could just simply take this off, right? So now, hey, I want to do, where's that backpack? So let's take a look at this item here. And so somebody comes into your shop. Hey, can you put a transfer on this backpack? So you're going to first take a look at it, like all these zippers, all these seams. How am I going to get this flat? Like, how am I going to put this in here to heat press that, right? So they want their transfer right here on this particular place, right? So what's nice about here is this has a zipper, so we could open this up, right? So I'm going to utilize now this platen here. It's a 6x10. And we have a variety of different sizes of these, and I'll just show some of them. But what's nice is, I think this will fit on there. So I can pop this in there. I lock my switch. And so now I can easily, so I'm going to put this bag. And so with that open, I'm going to get my straps. And so here's, you can see why threadability is key, to being a versatile decorating shop, to be able, basically never say no, right? So now I'm threading this on there. I have my small platen there. Drop that on there. And I know I wish I had an overhead camera, but now the zippers are out of the way, the straps are out of the way, all those different seams here. So I have a nice flat pressing surface. So I'd be able to slide that in, make sure your straps are down underneath, and then I'd be able to lock this down, 100% pressure exerted over the area you wanted to, not having to worry about melting those zippers or the seams interfering with pressure. So these platens and the versatility of Hotronix heat presses, are just going to allow you to decorate more items and be more profitable in everything that it is that you decorate. And so just some of the other platens that we have. We have our leg and sleeve platen, which is great if you're decorating sleeves or sweatpant legs, things like that. And this is our most popular. This is our 11x15. And any heat press sale, when I was selling direct, always include an 11 by 15 heat press platen. Why? Because it's perfect for youth and smaller garments, and even some of the smaller ladies' garments. Accommodates those very nicely. Again, dropping those seams around. So again, you have that nice flat pressing surface. One of my favorite features of this one too is if you're decorating hoodies that have the kangaroo pouch and the drawstrings for the hood, sometimes and typically that area is right here. So what's nice about this one is rather than having it landscape, portrait or whatever, I can turn it around sideways. So when I load that hoodie on there, the hood's going to fall below, the strings are going to fall below. So you have that nice pressing area there to do that full transfer on that hoodie. And so that's one of my favorites. And this is our tag along platen. And this is probably one of my favorites too, along with the 11 by 15. And why I like this one, because you kind of see the shape of it. Hold on, spin my chair here so I can set this on my knee. And it's kind of cut like a t-shirt. So it helps with aligning and making sure your t-shirt is on the platen straight. But this one, we have an area here where, most decorators out there these days, they're putting their own tags in their shirt, whether it's their business logo or their company brand, whatever that might be. So users could decorate the front as well as apply their tagless tee or their tag label. And I'll show you how that works. So let me take this one off. So we're going to drop this one in here. So this is super easy to swap out. And so in doing this, thread my garment. And I'll take this off with this loaded, but you can see with those kind of cutouts, you can kind of see it makes it easier to get on there much straighter. And then what we could do, there's an opening. So I'm going to pull the back of that shirt over that second platen there. And here, let me take this off just so you can see what I mean. Got to unlock it first, Mike. All right, let me put it up here on my knee again. So what I did there was I pulled the back up. And so now I have my tag here. Typically, you're going to remove that. So now I can place my branded tag here and also apply the front all in one step. And there's a few other different sizes that we do have available. So whichever platen size you need, or for whatever needs you have to decorate, we have a platen that's going to make those things so much easier. And so that's about it for me, Bo. If there's any questions.
Awesome. Good job. I like the idea of Hotronix here working smarter, not harder. And one press, you can do the front of your shirt and the branded collar.
Absolutely.
I was thinking with the bag, you were gonna bring that over to the hat press over there, the cap press, and put it on the cap press and show that you could do that for it. That's where I thought that was going.
Yeah,
I like the little twist there with the threadability.
And that's funny. I didn't even mention the cap presses. So we do manufacture cap presses as well. The most popular here is our the 360 IQ cap press. If you're decorating headwear, I wouldn't look at any other heat press out there, because we manufacture a few other cap presses, on our initial manufacturing of them. And sure, they work well. They apply transfers very, very well, but one of the drawback is the finished product. Because the design of the platens and things, they're very rigid. And so typically what happens with those types, the transfer applies fine. The transfer looks great, but it leaves a crease in the cap itself from where that platen and the pressure combine. So it leaves that crease right where those met, so it doesn't look very appealing as a finished product. Likewise, most caps, they're polyester. And what happens with polyester is it scorches under, once you get above 280 degrees, you're going to see that heat press box. And that's those polyester scorching. So the 360 we've developed.
So Mike, I never thought about this until now, but when you're doing something like a polyester shirt on a heat press, when you're done, you can stretch it out, to kind of get rid of that and hide those, the box that you created.
Yeah.
You can't really do that with a hat.
Right. Yeah. And so you'll have that heat press box where it came down, that crease, so like I said, transfer applies great. Everything looks good with the exception of the finished product of the hat itself because of some of those damages. So we developed the 360. The way the lower platen is designed, it's not so rigid, like it's very curved and domed, to prevent those creases. And what's nice is that it accommodates nearly any style of caps, from, your low crown dad caps to the trucker caps and, the Richardson, one of the Richardson styles, the most popular cap out there. So it accommodates a variety of different things. And so it eliminates that creasing for the design of the lower platen, but the best feature on the 360 IQ hat press is it has top heat as well as bottom heat. Right. So top and bottom heat, it's kind of a double-edged sword of what it takes care of. So it eliminates scorching. So what you're able to do is set the top heat press platen to 275. It's anywhere from 270 to 280, again, depending on the transfer or what you're applying to this particular hat. And then the lower heat, it usually ranges anywhere from 300 to 325. Again, it's all going to be variant on what transfer and what the adhesive calls for. So the higher heat is focused on the lower side, right? So all of that high heat is on the inside. So nobody's going to care if the inside scorches a little bit or it leaves that discoloration. You have the low heat on top. So that way it's going to prevent the scorching, what everybody is looking at. And with the top and bottom heat combined, it's that perfect marriage for that heat, for that transfer to apply properly. And top and bottom heat is ideal, because all the rage in when decorating headwear, it's a patch, whether it's a leather patch or whether it's an embroidered patch or whether it's kind of the metallic type raised, types of transfers. So top and bottom heat is ideal for applying dimensional logos because of the thickness, right? So that, again, that top and bottom heat creates that perfect marriage for a perfect application of those types of transfers. And so that is available as well through Hotronix, as well as the base models, which, yes, I could talk about them, but if you want to get a hat press, there's no other hat press to get than the 360. And again, if it's something, I could get the cheaper one and I could start decorating headwear now, but again, some of those challenges and downfalls of the older style cap presses, yeah, you're going to be able to do it, but that finished product isn't going to be, the best quality that you want to put out to your customers.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Mike. That was very informative and went over a whole gamut of everything that Stahl's Hotronix has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
From basic economy presses, which if you're interested, give us a call at 1-800-826-6332. I probably would prefer the Max press. I don't need all the bells and whistles.
Like I said, one of my favorite presses out there. It often goes overlooked in our catalog.
Yeah, that's great. The auto, does the Max have the auto feature as well?
The Max, it does not have the auto, so close manually, and when the timer reaches 0, it'll have an audible beep loud enough for you to hear it across the room for sure. So once in, you just pop it open manually.
But yeah, and then so the Auto Clam right now, if you purchase the Auto Clam right now up until the end of September, October 1st, it turns into a pumpkin. If
yes.
You get the free heat press caddy stand with it, and that is a $550 value. If you get the 16 by 20 clam press, it's the Auto Clam, and it is the STX20 is its number. Part number and all that. You get this free heat stand with it, and that heat stand looks absolutely amazing. Now the press is over 100 pounds. I want to say it's like 116.
Yeah, it's 100 and some change.
Yeah, it's not something you're really going to want to lug around or move very often, and they're also very awkward to move, even if you can lift that kind of weight.
Yeah, lifting a heat press isn't fun after so many trade shows and loading them in the back of people's vehicles to take them out. Yeah, and I love when they get one on the stand because we can at least wheel it to their car.
I'm always worried that it's going to pop open and like either the handle's going to hit me and bust out a tooth, or the platen's going to hit me and bust out a tooth or something, or break my glasses. So
I hear you.
getting that free caddy is absolutely essential. I wouldn't purchase a commercial heat press without getting some sort of stand caddy or
Absolutely.
table. You know,
Absolutely. The must for any heat press purchase, I guess, especially for a clam, you always want to have either the counter caddy, and during this promo, you're going to get the floor caddy. So those are a must for any clamshell, whether it's the Auto Clam, whether it's the Max. Two, the 11 by 15, and probably the tag along platen, and the 6 by 10. If you're decorating like bags and things like that, ideal. And I forgot to mention too, the platen covers, the lower platen cover, that's a must for any heat printer too, especially when it comes to threadability, because these are kind of non-stick. They're very smooth. And, without it, you could still decorate anything just like you could with it, but especially when you're threading garments, that rubber heat press pad there, it's sometimes, you kind of got to wiggle that thing on there because it tends to stick, and then over time, if you're threading garments on there, what's going to happen if you don't have these pads, it's going to start to peel up the corners of that rubber eventually, right? So not only does it prevent that rubber, but it makes it so much easier to thread and then take your garments off, so a must have are these platen covers for any heat press for sure.
And speaking about the silicone, the padding, it's something you don't think about with a heat press at all. No one's going to talk about it ever. It's not really a feature that's important until you get a cheap, overseas press, and you find out that silicone that they use actually smells terrible with heat applied to it. Absolutely terrible, and that smell does not go away. So part of your time with that heat press is going to just be burning away that smell created.
Yep. And the silicone pad too, it's a lot more, heat conductive, so sometimes on those import presses, that pad is really, really thin, so it doesn't conduct the heat all that well, so you have to maybe do it for 10 additional seconds, just for that heat. The silicone really helps maintain the heat press heat while you're heat printing as well.
And when we do all of our in-house testing and all of our settings, and I'm sure this is just an industry standard, we use a commercial heat press. All of our standards are going to be off a Geonite or a Hotronix, something along those lines. And Geonite and Hotronix, I'm going to say, probably very similar in pressing times and temperature and everything.
Yep.
But, your inexpensive presses may be a little bit different.
Yep. And one thing too, I just thought about it just now, and so sorry. Like I said, but I could go and talk forever. But all of Hotronix heat presses, and I think most American-made presses too, they're UL and CE certified, which is huge, for any business, because basically what those are is they're third-party independent kind of companies that ensure safety of equipment. And so, that's kind of ideal, especially for the home-based business, because with those certifications, that, it's been tested. It's not going to burn your house down, or not going to have any electric shocks, things like that. So it's great for that home-based business, but it often goes overlooked too, without those certifications, I don't think any of the imports, they may be compliant or, different type of certification, but here, in North America and the United States, those certifications are huge. So let's just say that heat press does catch on fire, and it injures an employee, they have to go to the hospital, they're out of work for a little bit, without those things being certified, that could potentially come back as a lawsuit. The employee could sue the employer, or, hey, it burnt my garage down, right? And then that could be insurance implications as well. Well, you were using equipment that's not certified, so we're going to deny your claim, right? So that's another drawback of imports, is those certifications and things for safety.
I never thought about that. A lot of Conde users are using stuff in their homes and stuff. And I know that I've made the joke before, like, man, I hope my house burns down, being mad at something, But when your house burns down or you have any sort of fire damage in your house, that can take months, years of getting, all of that back to normal. And
Yeah. So that's an important thing too. The having the UL and CE, UL, they're very similar, but CE is more European market, whereas UL is North American. And all of Hotronix heat presses meet those certifications.
Cool, cool. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on.
No
This
problem.
was awesome. Thank you again for all this.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, well, anytime we'll have you on here again sometime, and we've got some people over here that are really thanking us. So you've been appreciated. You know, yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna pitch the little press thing here at the end,
All right.
and I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Thank you. Oh, and if you guys are at Printing United in Orlando and still here, Mike will be there, Hotronix will be there, and you check them out. I'll be walking around, so say hi, and yeah, awesome. Thanks, Mike. Can't wait to see you in October.
Looking forward to it. Thanks everybody for attending.
Well, that was Mike here from Hotronix. Absolutely wonderful. It's great having the people that know their products, because he works for Hotronix. He is the expert. He's the expert on all things Hotronix. So thank you, Mike, for all of those. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for all that. I know that we couldn't do this awesome thing without you guys. Again, my name is Bo. This was Conde Systems. You can email me down there at bo@conde.com. Ask me questions, throw things around. I'll tell you new hot products. I'll tell you what's even coming that people might not even know about. So go ahead, email me, bo@conde.com. If you want, you can also email sales@conde.com, and you can give us a phone call at 1-800-826-6332. That's 1-800-826-6332. Give us a call about any of the specials you've seen today. And don't forget that any press that is a 16x20 Auto Clam, which is the STX, it's just one press, so not any press, just one press. That's 16x20. The Auto Clam gets the free heat caddy stand with it. That's an amazing $550 value. So yes, Bo here, Conde Systems. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you later. Goodbye.